What are you scared of as an adult that you weren't scared of as a child? Getting injuries. As a teen and young adult, I was very reckless and nothing happened to me. I think back and boy was I extremely lucky. Breaking a bone. As a kid I rode BMX, skateboards and didn't think twice about jumping off something. Now the first thing that crosses my mind is, I can't afford to get hurt. Being driven. I'm constantly thinking, have they seen that car? I'd be braking by now. Do they know this is a tight bend coming up? I learned to drive relatively late, and had 2 young kids by the time I passed my test. Before I could drive I didn't mind being a passenger, but now I'm always slightly nervous that whoever is driving might not be paying full attention to the road. Dying. When I was a kid I was way more depressed than I was ever willing to admit, and I had basically resigned myself to live a short life and end it before I became too burdensome to the world around me. Then I met my wife. Having someone else depend on you staying alive is a surreal feeling. I no longer actively hope to die, but still death didn't really scare me. Then I had my son. I can't let anything bad happen to him. I have to always be here to help and protect this kid, even when he's an adult himself. Absolutely everything in my life changed when he was born. Now the idea of dying actually fills me with existential dread. I don't want to put him through that. Dry drowning. You can drown, get saved and seem fine, so you don't get checked out, but there is fluid in your lungs, and despite walking around and talking for a few hours, your lungs are slowly suffocating from the water in them and you die. If the thought of drowning isn't terrifying enough, you can almost drown and be seemingly fine and then boom, no thank you. I was never scared of the world before, but as I grow up and start thinking about kids, I'm starting to get scared of all the things in this world that might hurt them. Hopefully that's just me being cynical though. I'll raise my kid to be as positive as possible. Riding downhill on my bike. As a child I would have my feet off the pedals and the thought of using a brake was alien to me. Now, I have a ridiculous fear my front wheel is going to come off and I will face plant. Last year my grandmother got very sick. She couldn't move her legs because of the pain and the weakness and spent most of the day sleeping. Before that she was amazingly active. She had back lessons every week and every time we went visiting, we spent most of the day walking around or just moving in general, so seeing her lying that weak and sick broke my heart every time. She passed away 2 months ago and I couldn't say goodbye in person because of COVID. I was able to do it on Zoom though. I only have my grandpa left, but now I'm really scared to lose him, especially by disease. Swimming in a body of water in which you can only see black underneath you. When I was a kid, we used to go swimming to this flooded quarry and I never had a problem swimming from one side to another without seeing anything below me. But now that I'm older I went there for a swim once again and I literally felt sick swimming with my belly aimed to the bottom of the quarry. I felt physically uncomfortable and expected something to stab through my stomach. You know that feeling when you did a handstand against a wall at school and someone came up to you to poke your flexed stomach and you became traumatized by it because it made you so incredibly uncomfortable? That's exactly how I felt swimming in that quarry. I don't know what changed. People jumping to conclusions about stuff. Holy shit. When I was a kid, my attitude was that it didn't matter if people jumped to conclusions because they would see the truth later. Now that I'm older, I see that people think whatever the hell they want, regardless of facts, and they are aggressive about defending their stupidity. Aggressively stupid people making aggressively stupid decisions that destroy other people's lives, because they think they're right and they are too short-sighted to imagine a world where they might be wrong. Fucking terrifying. My future. As a child I thought that I will have a simple home, 2 kids and a husband. I was sure that this was going to happen. Now I'm divorced, I can't have kids, and I am scared what the future will be for me. Will I die alone in my apartment and nobody will know I died for weeks, and after I start to decay someone will notice? Sorry for the bad mood today. People, I was indoctrinated to think we all start off good and become bad. That's a comforting thing to believe, but it's just not true. And I'm not even just afraid of evil people, stupid people, frightened people, tyrannical parents. All of them would gladly put me in a cage or put me in the ground just to make themselves feel like they have control. One day, long ago, my dad picked me up to give me a hug, and once he set me down, never picked me up again. That doesn't bother me too much. However, I now have a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the thought that one day I will put them down and never pick them up again terrifies me. I don't pick the 12-year-old up often, but I still do it every now and then just because I can. Failure has severe repercussions that reverberate throughout your life and others. A child is ignorant and is neither held accountable for their failures, but an adult is immediately condemned as culpable even if there were precipitating factors. A child has a benevolent parent to alleviate and even ameliorate any egregious errors, but an adult is perceived as contemptible for any injudiciousness or indiscretion. This might sound selfish, but being forgotten, as a kid, you think you're immortal, and you have no concept of the expanse of time. As an adult, knowing I have only got maybe another 35-45 years on this planet, I don't want to leave this life without doing something that has a positive impact on the world beyond mine. I do love my friends and family, I really do. But I want to do something that touches the lives of complete strangers, and at 38 years old with limited means, I'm not sure how viable that is. And, honestly, that's not something I ever really worried about doing as a child. Losing my marbles. My grandfather died with dementia and my dad has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Feels like just a matter of time. My memory is already in the gutter. I've had MRIs to check for early onset and cognition tests, and I'm in the clear, although I don't feel like it. Preventable diseases. My doctors never believe me when I talk about a persistent issue. I haven't had a period in 3 years, and my ovaries are in constant pain. But they keep telling me it will pass. It's been 8 years of pain. I just want an answer. I don't want to die from something they could have solved almost a decade ago if they just listened to me. Flying in an airplane. When I was little, I thought it was so much fun. Now, I find myself praying to whatever deity will listen that we land safe after even the tiniest bump of turbulence. I do love looking out the window at the scenery, though. Cancer. When I was 7, I was diagnosed with leukemia and went through 3 years of treatment. At no point during that was I scared. Just kind of did what I was told and just accepted it as my new normal. I didn't understand the danger that the leukemia posed to me until years later when I was old enough to get access to my medical records and started reading through the doctor's notes. Turns out that I had a 1/5 chance of surviving things. Now I'm scared that one day the cancer will return, something that can happen to survivors. When I was a child, the cancer didn't scare me at all. It was just my new normal. Cancer. When I was 7, I was diagnosed with leukemia and went through 3 years of treatment. At no point during that was I scared. Just kind of did what I was told and just accepted it as my new normal. I didn't understand the danger that the leukemia posed to me until years later when I was old enough to get access to my medical records and started reading through the doctor's notes. Turns out that I had a 1/5 chance of surviving things. Now I'm scared that one day the cancer will return, something that can happen to survivors. When I was a child, the cancer didn't scare me at all. It was just my new normal. My wife and I live pretty frugally on the remaining $35K/year we earn. Take home. I always worry that something will go wrong and our retirement plans will get destroyed somehow, whether it's some sort of war or maybe the economy crashes or whatever, and all our years of sacrifice will be for nothing. What also scares me is the people around me in my life at a similar age as us, and they have basically no retirement plans and are drowning in debt. COVID has compounded their problems while I got lucky and was deemed essential because we service several branches of the government. The police. My dad used to have a furniture shop in Oakland when I was a kid. I used to go in with him on the weekends and sweep up the wood shop, the sales floor, help stain furniture. It was a good gig for a kid. There was an old-school neighborhood beat cop named Mr. B that used to come into the businesses of Temescal, our neighborhood, and make sure everything was okay. Make sure we knew how to get a hold of the police if anything was wrong. Mr. B was a nice guy and a friendly face of the Oakland police. When I was a kid I really wanted to be a cop. Roll the clock forward 20 years and I found out cops drive small urban tanks around with guns on them all the time. They are stuck in shit situations, worried about their life because everyone has a gun, and they have to do social work for people having mental breakdowns in between having to deal with violent crime. Roll the clock forward another 20 years and cops seem to kill brown people like it's their job, and it might just be. Now I wouldn't want to be a cop, and I sure as hell avoid dealing with them at every opportunity that presents itself. I feared losing people close to me as a child like anyone would, but it was super abstract, right? Like, there are orphans in child literature, and you don't want that to happen to you, but you don't really feel it's truly possible if your home life is stable and you're mostly untouched by real loss. When I got married, though, that changed. The idea of losing my wife is terrifying. I feel vulnerable about that in a way I never really internalized about any relationship in my life ever. I mean, it's not like an anxiety or something, but having the kind of partnership we have makes me also very aware of what it would be like to lose it. So yeah, that. Not being able to financially support myself after my parents pass away, making bad decisions that alienate me from those I love, leading me to a lonely life, until one day I feel the sweet release of death. Kids. As a kid, interactions with kids just went sort of natural. You apply bodily harm to the ones you don't like and then they go away. As an adult, you can no longer bash the little aliens into oblivion, or rather you can, but there is a price to pay. I still haven't figured out how to deal with this. Time passing by and getting older. I'm 30 now, not in much of a better position than I was when I was 20. I wasted a lot of time, made quite a few bad decisions, and am honestly envious of people who seem to have at least some direction in their life. I imagine my 20s being the time where I discovered myself, maybe met a girl, started a career. None of those things really happened, and now I'm terrified I'll be in the same situation at 40. People. As a kid I would try to be friends with anyone, but now, after all my interactions with people, I can see how crazy, irrational, selfish and dangerous we humans are. I see it in friends and family as well. Nothing opens your eyes like realizing a much-loved family member didn't accidentally hurt you, they wanted to and they acted on that desire. Loneliness. Went from always being surrounded by people you know love you as a child to having to go out of your way to find love for yourself. I'm in college and so my circumstances are unique, but after college, my biggest fear is loneliness, whereas as a child it would never cross my mind. Being alone without another adult, or competent young person, around. What if something happens to me? Asthma fit, pulmonary embolism / stroke / broken leg etc., and I can't get to a phone to call for help. It wasn't that much of a worry until I had kids, because if I'm incapacitated, who will make sure the kids are safe? I used to always go to a remote log cabin in a forest alone for a week at a time, sometimes without a car, and not worry at all. Now the thought of going there alone with the kids is terrifying. Life, just simply life. I'm afraid of not being able to actually live. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. Rest for 2 days and a new week starts. Pay the bills. Losing really close friends due to lack of time to meet. Today's society is social media based. It's hard to be your actual self, to do the things you love, to miss out on everything. As a child, you didn't have to think about anything. You just could play all day and do some homework which was done in under 5 minutes. There weren't any worries. I really wish I could go back to that time and live fearless. Before, the concept of death scared me a bit, but not how I would die. Now I'm not that afraid and I've learned to accept a few things. But one thing that does scare me is how I'll die. I don't know how I'll die, but I sure as shit don't wanna die hurting or being stabbed 27 times. Humans, as a kid I believed that if you're good and kind to people that they'll treat you the same way. Now, I'm 24 years old. I've been used, broken, mistreated by the people who I loved and walked over by people I considered my friends no matter how good I was to them. Toxic people, toxic relationships seem like they're everywhere. I've lost faith in the good in people, and with time it's getting chipped away more and more. Everybody's so superficial and fake now. Not having the same opinion as other people. As a kid, you would get in a disagreement, maybe even have a fight. Now I cannot have an opinion because my company could fire me if I lean too far either direction. I've been shunned at work because I do competitions shooting, so I support gun ownership. Now I somehow support all gun violence ever. Not sure how that works. I also had the audacity of having children. So now I'm responsible for overpopulation, pollution, and being a financial burden. Despite me always having a job and never taking a government handout of any kind ever. Oh, and I'm a straight white male, so I must be responsible for everybody else's issues ever, past, present, and future. Heights. When I was a kid I climbed tall trees, telephone poles, onto rooftops. Just about anything I could. I would jump off of swings at the top of the arc, rope swings over water and just about anything else that could help me pretend to either be Superman or Spider-Man. Now I don't even like climbing ladders because I understand how badly I can be injured if I fell. My joints and bones are not as strong and flexible as they used to be. The idea that I may have a hard time having children. I have had 2 miscarriages within less than a year, July 2020 and February 2021. Growing up, it was always when I have kids someday. I'll underscore or I'll name them underscore. Now I just say if I have kids someday, frown. All of my joints getting some form of arthritis. Mainly my knees. I injured my meniscus at age 15 and the doctor said I would eventually need surgery on it in the future. That was 23 years ago. And my left knee still sucks. And sometimes my joints and my hands ache because I use a PC and play video games in my primary hobbies and profession. Not gonna be a good time in the next decade or so if it's slightly bugging me now. Growing up, we were told we could turn to the police if we needed help. I fear them. Growing up, all the cartoony library books said we should reach out and get help from doctors. But now I fear health insurance, 2 staples of society I'm too scared to access. Crashing. You know your speed racer friend in HS and college? That was me. Every commute from my house to school, I was trying to go as fast as I can. I got into a couple of accidents with relatively minor damage. Looking back now, I was lucky to be alive. I stick to the speed limits and traffic rules now. Traffic jams on freeways with my kids in the car. Anytime I'm at the tail end of a traffic jam on the freeway it scares the shit out of me. The last time I was in Portland I had the kids in the car and they were passed out in the back seat, Traffic came to a stop, and as I was sitting there watching my mirrors in fear of the next person not stopping or slowing enough to do so, it happened. The next car was not slowing down. I started flashing my brake lights, and thankfully they noticed traffic was stopped at the last second and swerved to the shoulder, zipping by my car at 60+ miles per hour and didn't come to a stop for like 10 more car lengths. Some of my family, you grow up thinking everyone's all loving and accepting, and then you grow to realize some of them are pretty slimy people with some really shitty views. Seeing them turn into vultures after the death of their parents didn't paint a great picture either. All the talk of some of the cousins just cutting ties after marrying suddenly starts to make sense. 'Cause holy hell, I definitely don't want to be around some of them. Being sick. How much will I have to spend on medication? How much will my doctor's office or visit be? Will my insurance cover anything? Can I still work while deathly ill or pain because otherwise my bills won't get paid? ?